If you're someone who works in a profession that exposes you to trauma, and someone who doesn't work in one of these professions tells you you just need to practice better self-care, I want you to send them this video. Hello and welcome to the Pause First Academy channel. I'm Kim Colegrove. I'm an author and the owner of Pause First Academy, where I offer stress management and resilience training for trauma-exposed professionals. So the reason that one person's self-care practices might not work for you is your exposure to trauma. You have a unique path to well-being, and in order for you to understand and navigate that path, it's important for you to understand trauma and exposure to trauma and how it can impact your brain and body and why it might be preventing you from relaxing or finding benefit from typical wellness tools. Wellness advice does not always account for trauma. And so that's why if someone suggests self-care to you or says, take a breath or go meditate, sometimes those suggestions fall flat. I think it might help if we talk about the difference between stress and trauma. Stress is an emotional or physical reaction to a challenge or demand, such as work demands, financial problems, relationship issues, or health concerns. A stressor may be a one-time event, a short-term occurrence, or it can happen repeatedly or over a long time. Stress is a separate topic from trauma. So let's define trauma. Trauma is a persistent emotional response to circumstances that an individual experienced as harmful or threatening. These circumstances can include being a victim of or being exposed to violence, abuse, neglect, tragedy, and disasters. Trauma can cause a lasting adverse impact on a person's health, functioning, and sense of well-being. So let me see if I can give you a couple of examples to help you better understand that there really is a difference between stress and trauma. So let's take a divorce as an example. That's something that most people understand. Now, I'm not talking about a divorce that involved abuse or anything traumatic. I'm talking about a divorce that was basically a mutual divorce, irreconcilable differences. Both parties agreed, we're just not a fit or it's not working out. Divorce is stressful no matter what. So going through a divorce might be a very stressful patch in your life, and it might last for a while. Stress is an emotional or physical reaction to challenges and demands, but typically stress doesn't impact a person's ability to function. And flash forward a few months or a year or two, and typically a person who got divorced under sort of agreeable terms like that, that stress is behind them. That stress no longer impacts them to the degree that it did when they were going through the divorce. Now, let's talk about trauma. Someone who has been abused or neglected or has witnessed a crime or witnessed or been involved in some kind of a natural disaster, these types of events in our lives, these threats and traumatic events, these are the circumstances and events that create trauma. And what's really important for you to know is that there is direct trauma, that's trauma that you experienced yourself. And then there's secondary trauma. And secondary trauma is what impacts a lot of trauma-exposed professionals. Secondary trauma means being exposed to and impacted by the trauma of others. What I want you to take away from that definition is that secondary trauma and trauma are very similar in the way they make a person feel. The symptoms of secondary trauma mimic the symptoms of trauma. Oftentimes, there's no difference at all. Those secondary traumatic events can impact you just as seriously as direct trauma does. That's why I say you have a unique path to wellness. It's not that you can't do these things. It's not that these self-care practices aren't for you, but you might need to first learn about and understand the trauma that you carry. And then you might need a unique approach to these wellness tools. I started off teaching stress reduction, stress management, meditation, and mindfulness to individuals, small classes, and in corporate settings. So I was a consultant or a contractor that taught wellness in corporate settings. And when I did that, I was there to help people deal with their stress. In fact, I used terms like stress reduction strategies. The employers would hire me to come and help people learn how to better manage their stress. And the skills and tools that I taught were breathing, meditation, mindfulness, the same skills and tools that I'm teaching to trauma exposed professionals now. But I did not account for anyone's trauma. I wasn't working with traumatized people. That's not to say that some of the people I worked with hadn't experienced trauma. I'm sure many had, but I was just kind of operating in the world of stress. When I lost my own husband to suicide just after he retired from a 30-year law enforcement career, that's when I turned my awareness to law enforcement, first responders, and others who are the helpers who work in these high stress, high pressure professions that expose them to trauma throughout their career. So the first thing that I did was I started to study and learn about trauma. That's when I learned about secondary trauma. And the more I learned, the more I understood that we as a society are not doing a good job of taking care of the people who take care of us. And that's why I wanted to work with this group. So I became trauma aware and then learned how to become, through taking courses and classes, I learned how to become a trauma sensitive instructor and a trauma sensitive teacher and speaker. But I started by becoming trauma aware. So let me define that for you. The term trauma aware means a person has a fundamental understanding that traumatic experiences and events can have a lasting impact on an individual's life and behavior. It's about knowing about and understanding trauma and its prevalence in society. It's quite prevalent. And it's about recognizing that people may react to triggers and that changes in environment or support may be needed. So I will posit that potentially you might encounter people in your life who off and on hit very stressful patches, and when they feel stressed, they use these particular self-care tools and they recommend them to you, and you can't do them. You can't sit still long enough to meditate because your mind is so active and your body just won't allow you to relax. Well, you're probably operating with a dysregulated nervous system. So when those people who use these tools when they're stressed recommend them to you, you're traumatized. You're carrying trauma or secondary trauma, so it's a little bit of a different experience. And that's why I said it might be a good idea for you to send this video to any of those well-meaning people who just cannot understand why you don't practice better self-care. They might not be trauma aware. No fault of their own. I mean, there was a time when I was not trauma aware, and now I've learned more about trauma than I ever thought I would. And I've learned how very important it is for anyone who works with this population to be trauma aware and use a trauma sensitive approach. As you become more trauma aware, as you gain a better understanding of trauma and how it can impact the brain and body and how it might be preventing you from using those self-care skills and tools that you know might help you feel better, might help reduce your stress and improve your overall health. As you learn more, you can design a path to wellness that will work for you because, like I said, you have a unique path because of the trauma exposure. I hope this information helps you. And if you are a nurse or a social worker or a first responder, a victim advocate, or anyone whose job exposes them to the trauma and suffering of others, I created a free mini course over on Pause First Academy. If you're interested at all in meditation, you might want to go check that out. It's free. It's a short course. It delivers kind of the evidence behind meditation, the science-backed details that might help you buy in. I think once you understand the power of meditation intellectually, once you understand the evidence-based benefits, I do think that helps you open up to the practice. And then if you do that and then you're interested in learning about meditation, you might want to check out my 21-day meditation Jumpstart course over there. This is a no-fail meditation course that starts with 1 minute a day, 2 minutes a day, and we work our way up to 21 minutes a day. But the reason it's perfect for trauma-exposed professionals is because if all you can do is 1 minute and that's all you can do for a while, then that's what you do for a while. I built so much flexibility into that course, you can't possibly fail. And it gives you a way to kind of tiptoe or kind of like baby step into the practice. So there's a couple of ideas. If you are looking for ways to manage your stress, to become more emotionally resilient, I definitely encourage you to consider breathing and meditation and mindfulness, learning about nervous system regulation. But I also want to make sure that you understand that you might need different instruction or a different approach to these tools than the average person. I hope this information has helped. And listen, the next time some well-meaning person says, hey, you need better self-care, send them this video. And then go look through my other videos and see if any of them appeal to you. Viewing these videos on YouTube is free and it's a great way for you to learn. And after you do that, go over to Pause First Academy and see what I have going on over there. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate you very much. I will put a link to those 2 courses and to my online learning platform in the description box below, and all other pertinent information will be in the description box as well. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time, and I will see you in the next video.